Hello and welcome back to Star Citizen. My name is Evenlease, and today on 10 Minutes More or Less Ship Review, right behind me, the ANVIL Paladin. Let's go ahead and take a look. Alright, welcome back to another ship review. Today, the ANVIL Paladin, and thank you WinRAR42 and Cypher1 for joining me on today's review of the Paladin. I have to say, this ship is a pretty cool looking ship, and that might be the only reason why you want to own it if you look at the current stats on there. This is only the second review since the release of this ship, and there has been a lot of changes between the first one I've done and now this second one. First, let's start off with the price. It sits at $350 if you were to buy it on the Pledge store, or if you get it in game, it's $15,876,000 aUEC. That's a very hefty price tag, and you gotta wonder, why is it so expensive? And that's a very good question. This ship actually falls behind in the current version of Star Citizen, and I'm going to go over all the stats and reasons why. Now, in Star Citizen, the stats are very important because it tells you exactly how a ship's going to handle, how a ship is going to defend itself, how a ship's going to take some hits before it ends up, succumbing to its injuries. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and begin with the pilot burst damage per second, which is 3,292 due to the 4 size 4 CF447 rhinos on the wings. Now, if you occupy the 2 seats at the bottom of the Paladin, you will no longer gain control of those as the pilot. So it is suggested, unless you wanted to defend more than just the front of the ship with those guns, to leave those seats completely empty, so the pilot has control over those weapons. And then the pilot also has 8 size 3 Arrestor 3 cross-section missiles and 2 size 4 Raptor 4 EM missiles. For the Arrestor 3s, I would just get rid of the cross-sections. Go ahead and go with something like EM missiles, because those just work out better. And for the Raptors, those are great. The EM missiles there are perfect, and you don't have to really worry about that. And then you do have 4,910 turret burst damage per second due to the 4 size 5 CF557 Galderines on the top of this ship. In the current version of Star Citizen, it is a very tough ask to keep those on this ship. These guns are all laser weapons, and currently shields are just extremely powerful, making laser weapons something you probably don't want to have on your ship, especially if you're going after any player targets. With that in mind, what do you want to throw on this thing, especially in 4.9? That's a good question. Honestly, I would probably put deadbolts on the size 5s on the top of the ship, and then on the sides, I'd put size 4 Revenants, because the Revenants will have an extremely good penetration distance. One of the best in the game at this point for 4.9 in the current standing. But on the top with those deadbolts, it's going to have that high alpha damage, allowing you to strip away at armor, while the sides go ahead and deal out damage and penetration, which would be great. Now, with that combination, you should have a pretty good time. But of course, it's up to you. You could deadbolt the whole thing, or you can go with just, ballistic repeaters or Gatlings all over this thing and kind of hope for the best. But of course, you always want to aim for the higher alpha if you plan on attacking anything your size or bigger. And this ship is a pretty big ship. Now, for anti-fighter, the ballistic Gatlings or repeaters are kind of the way to go. And so you kind of have to decide if you want the deadbolts on the sides or on the top. And then with that, you do have 72,000 quadrant shield, which is honestly very low in comparison to many other gunships in the game. And the number one gunship I'm going to compare this to is the Starlancer TAC. And the reason why is because the TAC is just so much more capable and honestly, I think cheaper. So with that in mind, you got to understand where I'm coming from when I say the Paladin is not in a great state right now. It does have 18,480 armor with a 139 deflection physical and an 88 deflection energy. That is probably one of the lower ones outside of the Redeemer in any sort of deflection. The Starlancer TAC has over 300 on both of the deflection physical and its energy. It also has over 120,000 shield. It also, this ship is just in such a tough tough position when it comes down to being an actual gunship, something able to take on a fight. And it also has 149,819 ship HP. Now you're like, oh, wow, this has a lot of great HP there. But honestly, the way it's kind of split throughout the ship, it makes it a pretty hard catch altogether, because once you start losing your armor and they start hitting your components, that ship HP is only about when you're going to explode. Doesn't mean you're not going to be out of the battle pretty quick, because your armor just fails to stop anything and gets you out of there even quicker. Now, I will put a comparison on screen showing you the difference between this, the Star Lancer TAC, and the Redeemer right now, as you can take a look. If you want to go ahead and take a look at this a little bit slower, go ahead and pause as you go through and see for yourself how this thing kind of positions. Now, if you're talking about the SCM speed, this is a little bit better than the TAC, which is good, and it's pretty nice. Still much slower than the Redeemer, though, sitting at 175 SCM with a 340 forward boost and a 200 backwards boost with a top nav speed of 950. It does have a pitch yaw roll of 23, 19, 45 with a boosted 28, 23, 54. And I'm going to have to say this again, because, and you're going to have to get used to this during this review, that's worse than the Star Lancer TAC. The Star Lancer TAC is a bigger ship with a med bay, with areas to put ground vehicles, cargo, even snub fighters on the top, and carry multiple people for dropship purposes, or even using them as gunners. This ship, I don't even understand what its identity is at this current point due to the stats that are on it, allowing you not to take much of a hit at all. And really, what are you going to be out there fighting with that in mind? Now, you do have 48 flares and 5 decoys. Again, a very low number for a ship meant to be out into the middle of combat with the extreme firepower that it does have. It also has 61 SCU of hydrogen fuel and 3.85 SCU of quantum fuel in the current version of the game. That'll probably change in the future once we get the fuel changes back in. Now, you do have actually 4 SCU of cargo grid. You have a cargo grid on this ship, which is pretty funny, but it's only 4 SCU, and it's really hard to fit anything other than 1 SCU or a 2 SCU container in the ship and on that grid. With that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at the interior of the ANVIL Paladin. All right, we are walking up to the Paladin right now, and the first thing you have to know is this thing only has 1 entrance. That's it, just 1 entrance. There's no docking entrance, there's no ladders, there's nothing. It's just the very one, and it's in a position that if for some reason you crash land and you're upside down, you won't be exiting the vehicle at all. There will be no way of escape. Now, it does have escape pods, but currently, as we all know, escape pods in 4.9 have no actual use. So with that, let's go ahead and head over to the side here. This is where one of the fuel ports on the ship is. You can go ahead and hit that button and it'll open it up. Very cool. Now, we are using the Alliance Aid camo currently on this ship, and that's the one from the Alliance missions just a few short months ago, and so here it is. It looks very pretty. Now, if you make your way into the ship itself with that little button on the side right there, it opens up the nice stairway. Once you're on board, you have this nice little access point. You just keep making your way forward, and here is where you have some suit lockers as well as your weapon storage. You do have quite a few different weapon storages here, from rifles, all sorts of different rifles and handguns, and including a special weapons rack where you can place a railgun or even a boom tube. Now, in the current iterations of certain ships, they do have the ability to store like ammunition and stuff beneath here, like on the Ironclads, but we don't have that currently on the Paladin, and hopefully we'll get some updates to allow that. Now, once you make your way out of this initial room, you're going to kind of make your way into a lot of where the engineering is. This is just where you'll be taking care of a lot of the ship. You open up any of these side panels with the buttons that you'll see that are yellow, and you'll have access to a lot of your engineering components all throughout the sides here. Now, here is the cargo grid. It's a really tough spot cargo grid, and it's really short as well. So you're only going to fit 4 SCUs right here. You can either do two SCU containers or 4 ones, but more than likely you're gonna have a better opportunity with just the 1 SCU containers. Another big thing about this ship is the amount of doors it has. Just to get to the pilot seat, you have to go through not only the entrance, you have the door here, a door here, another door right here, and then even a door after that to get to that pilot seat, which is through that door. You have a multitude of doors. So when you're on this first floor here, I would recommend going straight past the fire extinguisher and going to the engineering terminal. Take this engineering terminal, which currently looks to be bugged. Oh no, oh no. We'll check the other engineering terminal. There's another one up top, thankfully. But first, before we go to the second floor, let's finish off with the first floor here. You do have an area to climb up a ladder or climb down the ladder to make your way to the second floor. If there's an emergency blocking that door, you can go ahead and get down via this ladder. And then if you make your way through this door, this is the remote turret seats right here. These control the side weapons on the ship when their seats are occupied. I would recommend not occupying the ship. You turn this ship from a 4-man ship to a 2-man ship, just leaving it with the pilot and the co-pilot right above, right here. As you can see, it has a nice window and you can even take a look. Pretty cool. Now, off to the side here, if you go ahead and take a look, you have another fire extinguisher, which is pretty good. And then, of course, that's it. That's all there is. That's all she wrote. It would be very cool if we had like a little weapons rack here or something, but nothing. Now, if we make our way through the door and then on to this side over here, we're going to go ahead and climb up the stairs. Right here is where the crew is going to be spending a lot of their time, right? First, the door here leads you straight to the bathroom. You have a nice little sink with a mirror, and it works, which is really cool. And then you have a nice shower area and the toilet, which is always awesome. Stay away from that toilet. I swear to God, just stay away from it. And then if you make your way over here, you have another fire extinguisher, as well as a nice seating area. And they made sure that they don't want any more than 4 people on board, so they made sure not to make it a bench seat and to kind of cut it in half, which is pretty interesting. It's a table with only 4 seats. Get used to it. That or sit on the metal and just be uncomfortable. Now, if you make your way through the next door, this is where the crew will sleep. And I sadly think that they kind of could have used a little bit more of this space to allow all 4 occupants in this room. You do have 2 bunk beds right here against this wall, which is pretty nice. And then you have over here a nice little bench. And then over here, you have a nice little counter, which I feel like there could have been another, double bunk right here, and that would have been all 4. And then you have your storage right here and right here. And then you have a nice little seating area. You can go ahead and write home and kind of check out the little screens. And that's about it. Now, when you're in this living area, it is pretty nice. Again, I feel like if they could have just taken advantage of this space and allowed all 4 occupants here, they wouldn't have had to copy and paste that room to this next room right here. It's good to see our pilot on board and ready to go to fly the Paladin at any moment. Now, if we open this door here on the side, this is just a copy paste room from the other side. Instead of having this space for something else, they did just copy and paste, allowing you to have even more space for the other 2 crew members. Again, I feel like it could have probably gone to where all crew members were housed on one side, but with the space being used as is, it's pretty nice. I mean, it's got a lot of space, a lot of little living area, and kind of gives some separation between 2 crew members. So the pilot and co-pilot don't have to bunk with the 2 people underneath them. You know what I'm saying? The 2 turret gunners down there don't get the same appreciation as the pilot and co-pilot, which is too bad. And then here is your primary engineering room. So the rest of your components, outside of what you have underneath where that stairwell is, will be housed here in the rest of these doors, which is primarily most of your important components, right? Quantum drive, you got your power systems, and it looks great. You got 3 power plants on this thing, even though you only need 1, but you do have 3. So you have a lot of, backup for this thing. If you lose 1 power supply, you'll have 2 others, right? Well, the really nice thing is, though, this ship has a really good power system. You don't have to worry about removing any power from anything other than your coolers if you really wanted to. But you have your armor, your hull, and you have everything here. As you can see, full coolers are on, and we have no real issues. We'll see more when we get into the pilot seat. But with that, let's go ahead and do that. Let's head right to the pilot seat. Look at this. It's really beautifully designed. This ship's exterior and interior are just phenomenal. Right here's the nice little kitchen area, by the way, with a microwave, the cup access, as well as like forks and silverware, your ice cream maker, everything that you need. And then if you make your way through this door right on over here, you have the pilot and the co-pilot seat with another fire extinguisher, another relay, and a radar access point right on over here, which is pretty nice. You can, repair your relays and your radar right up at the pilot seat instead of having to run across the ship. And then over here, a computer access point for, when we get the ability to have our guns manned via the AI. And then over here, the pilot seat, the co-pilot seat. I have to say, it's pretty cool. This top window, as well as the bottom window, you do have the ability to deploy an armored shield. It doesn't actually change anything stat-wise, though, so keep that in mind. It's just more or less for just the fun of it, right? Go ahead and hit that deploy button, and it go ahead and covers the window. It looks really cool, and it's just such a vibe, right? You're in here like, oh yeah, we're going into the fight. We're probably not going to last that long, but that's all right. let's go. With this thing in combat, it is great in PvE, a fantastic PvE boat, but in PvP, it's a support ship through and through, and you have to be very careful about what is attacking you. You do have a phenomenal view throughout the entirety of the cockpit, except for, of course, this huge dash right in front of you, but outside of that, you'd have great upwards view, left, right, it just looks fantastic. Again, like I said, swap the weapons out how you see fit, but in 4.9 there is a huge change to penetration, in the game. Now you do have to rely on alpha damage as well still, but penetration will matter when you're looking to hit those components. Now, if we go into the co-pilot seat here, let's take a look at that turret, because the really cool thing is when you're in this turret, it does have the ability to go ahead and swap up and down. So let's go ahead and enter that remote turret, and as you can see, we're on top of the ship, and then if I hit S, it takes us to the bottom of the ship. It is a really cool function, as you would see on the Scorpius, and I think honestly it's really neat, right? I don't really know how often you would use something like this, but it's cool that it's here. So if you switch from fighting in space to maybe shooting things on the ground, it makes it a little bit easier. Now overall, this ship for me has dropped in score quite dramatically. I will have to say it's a 72 out of 100, and that's because this thing is just not really ready for battle, especially since its armor, its shield, are just not good. They're not good. Its armor gate's not great at all. It does have a ton of firepower. Its health pool is high, but the second you start losing those engine nacelles on the left and right back of the ship, let's take a look. Right here on the back of the ship, as you see those long arms there, the fork, those are very important. And the second you lose one or two of those, this ship becomes nothing. You can't fly it. You lose one of them, the thing will start to fall. You lose the second one, you're just done altogether. And the health pool spread allows that to happen somewhat easily. So with that in mind, a 72 out of 100, no longer a very high score, and maybe one day it'll return to, where it should be. But for now, it's in a struggling spot, and it does need a lot of updates. Its stats are very important for how it acts on the battlefield, but also the pilot and your gunners are very important too. With that, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. You all are truly amazing. And of course, I'll see you all in the next one.